It was a typical sweltering Sunday, the kind of afternoon where even the birds seemed too hot to sing. I had just returned from running errands, the trunk of my car filled with groceries, and sweat already dripping down my back. I was looking forward to one thing, some peace and quiet by the pool. Now, here's something important you need to know. I live in a private, gated community. Yes, we have neat sidewalks and trimmed hedges. But no, my property is not part of the HOA. I bought my home specifically for the privacy, the independence, and the freedom from overreaching neighborhood rules. That pool in my backyard? Fully paid for, built with my own money, not shared, not public, not community-owned. But because I've always believed in being a good neighbor, I've occasionally allowed trusted families, mostly those with respectful kids, to use my pool with permission. I figured that if I was around and people were polite, there was no harm in sharing the fun. That generosity, however, quickly turned into a recipe for disaster. A few weeks ago, I came home early from work and heard loud music thumping before I even turned into my driveway. When I walked into the backyard, I was shocked. My pool was packed with unfamiliar teenagers. One kid had a speaker the size of a suitcase. They were eating chips, leaving wrappers in the grass, and tossing soda cans into the bushes. It was a full-blown party, without my consent. That's when I saw him. One kid stood out, loud, cocky, tossing a football dangerously close to the garden. Gnome my daughter had painted last year, Karen's son. If you've never had the pleasure of dealing with a Karen, consider yourself lucky. She's the kind of person who believes she speaks for the entire neighborhood, even when nobody asked her to. Knows always in other people's business. She talks about HOA policies like she's the president, mayor, and sheriff rolled into one. But here's the kicker. My house isn't under the HOA. Never was. Never will be. Karen once came knocking on my door, demanding I remove a patio umbrella because it wasn't HOA approved. I explained very calmly that my home wasn't part of her precious HOA. I even showed her the deed. She didn't take that well. Her lips tightened. She huffed. Then she walked away with the kind of muttering only a Karen can muster. Equal parts, outrage and disbelief. After seeing her son treat my backyard like a theme park, I decided that was the final straw. No more free rides. That weekend, I installed a high-quality security lock on the pool gate and put up a bold sign. Private property. No trespassing. Problem solved, right? Not quite. That very afternoon, as I was trimming hedges near the pool gate, I heard whispers and footsteps. I walked around the corner and, what do you know, Karen's teenage son was back, this time with two friends, attempting to climb over my locked fence like it was a jungle gym. I stepped forward and said firmly, "Hey, you don't have permission to be here. Get away from the pool." The boy looked at me like I was the crazy one. "My mom says I can use it. It's part of the HOA. I raised an eyebrow. "Well, your mom is wrong. This pool isn't part of the HOA. It's private. It's mine. And what you're doing right now is called trespassing." He didn't flinch. Instead, he pulled out his phone and, without missing a beat, declared, "I'm calling 911. You can't lock community property." I almost laughed out loud. "You go right ahead," I said. "Let's see how that works out for you." And then he actually did it. About 10 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up, and there, standing like she was about to receive a medal for civic duty, was Karen, arms folded, chin raised, smug smile plastered across her face. She was already rehearsing her victory speech in her head. I could see it. The officer stepped out and asked me, "Sir, do you own this property?" "Yes," I replied, handing him my deed, already printed and highlighted for situations just like this. And here's the footage from my security camera, showing these kids trying to scale my locked fence. Karen piped up before the officer could finish reviewing it. "But the pool has always been used by neighborhood kids." She whined. "You're ruining the sense of community." The officer turned to her, voice steady and composed. "Ma'am, this pool is on privately owned land. Your HOA has no jurisdiction here. Your son and his friends were trespassing. Karen's face dropped like a melting popsicle. Her lips quivered. She looked like she'd just swallowed a lemon. The officer turned to her son. Son, calling 911. Because you were told to stay off private. Property is a misuse of emergency services. That's a serious offense. You're lucky we're treating this as a warning. Then he looked back at me. You're fully within your rights to keep this area locked. In fact, if this happens again, I'd recommend pressing charges. Karen stammered. But the kids were just playing. The officer cut her off. Ma'am, trespassing is still illegal regardless of age. As a parent, you're responsible. That was the nail in the coffin. Karen stood frozen, her voice a whisper. Her son looked like he wanted to disappear into the grass. The other two kids had already stepped behind the gate, trying to distance themselves from the embarrassment. The officer left me with a courteous nod, and as his cruiser rolled away, Karen gave me one last glare before ushering her son away. Since that day, I haven't heard a peep. No knocks, no complaints, no teenagers trying to swim without permission. The gate remains locked. The sign remains up. And Karen? She's been eerily quiet, almost, like she finally learned where her authority ends. And just like that, with a lock, a sign, and a little backbone, I reclaimed my peace. Funny how some people only understand boundaries when the law sets them. As for Karen, well, even self-appointed queens have to bow to reality. Hit that like button. Subscribe to ZK Stories for more true stories that spark reflection, justice, and humanity. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done? This was ZK Stories, where every story leaves a mark. Until next time, stay aware, stay kind, and stay strong.